All right, welcome everybody to a Monday expert interview. And what an expert interview it is going to be today. All topics on advancing construction with industry observer and information gatherer, Gary Fleisher, aka the Modcoach, as well as the editor-in-chief of iMedia. And we're going to bring you some news on that as well. Gary has been reporting on the modular construction industry for many, many years. Join us as we recap 2021 and look forward to what's next in offsite construction. From alternative building materials to construction technology, what's driving the industrialization of the construction industry? Productization, prefabrication, bring it on, Gary Fleisher. What is happening, Modcoach?
Good morning, Dave. How are you?
Man, listen, I'm excellent, Gary. You always put a smile on my face. You and I have been running in the same circles in this industry for a lot of years, and we have the same passion. So this is a real pleasure and a privilege to have you come on the show. So thank you.
It's more pleasure's mine, Dave. I look forward to talking with you anytime I can.
Yeah, for sure. You know, Gary, not too many people don't know who you are. However, we are always reaching out to more and more people, and we have new followers who may not know who you are. So why don't you give us your elevator pitch? Give us your 2 minutes, and here's how it's going to go. We want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment in time. Do not leave out any of the good stuff from the hospital, or my wife will call Peg, and we're going to bring Peg on the show, and she's going to tell us all the stuff you don't want us to know. But you only have 2 minutes to do it, so go for it.
Well, then I'd have to be like one of those after things in the prescriptions.
That's right.
That goes so fast you can't even understand what they were talking about. No, I was been in a lot of things, but I was a GC for 13 years and decided I needed to do something different. So I signed on and became a modular sales rep. Started with Genesis, and that led to a couple other factories. I was a pretty decent sales rep. And then 2008 hit, and nobody needed sales reps. So I ended up with a decision, and I retired. And right before I retired, I started writing a blog about the industry. And that was in 2008, and I'm still doing it. And I appear to be doing okay because people still come and read me once in a while. But it's getting bigger. The world, as big as the world is, it's shrinking. And it's amazing that right now, the international market for offsite is growing in every country. And there's just a wealth of information that needs shared out there. And that's what I try to do on Modular Home Source. But one of the things that's happened is I need to branch out into more things. And that's why I'll talk to you about that on the show here, Dave.
I love it. All right. Perfect. I like it when you keep me in suspense, Gary. This is good stuff. So, Gary, you're right. In 2008, we really took a big hit as an industry as a whole in construction, right? And a lot of things have shifted but it also gave you an opportunity to kind of sit back, rethink about things, look at what's happening, and that's kind of what inspired you to start writing your blog, isn't it?
Well, I had done it before that, but my heart wasn't in it. And then about 3 months after I retired in 2008, Peg came to me and said, if you don't find something to do, I'll find you something to do. And so I'll just keep writing my blog. And next thing you know, 7,000 articles into it, and I'm still writing.
Yep, 7,000 articles into it. I believe last we spoke, you said your LinkedIn is getting millions of views. Your blog, you're in like the top 5% or something on LinkedIn now, right?
The last time I was able to confirm it, which was about a year and a half ago, I'm in the top 1% of all contributors to LinkedIn.
Top 1%.
Yep. I like
How does that make you feel, Gary? That's super awesome, man.
Yeah, I like to know who else is there with me, because that would even be more awesome.
Sure.
It's probably Elon Musk and Jerry McCoffey and people like that. But
right.
that's neat.
Well, listen, everybody, we are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. So get your tweets on out there. Tweet the Modcoach and let Gary know you're watching. Also, if you are not subscribed to our YouTube channel, you got to get there and subscribe. That's right. We are over 100,000 minutes being watched right now. 100,000 minutes. And it's awesome. I think our views are well over 100,000 as well. So it is growing rapidly. All right, Gary, let's get into what we have going on. Before we get into the topics here, you guys are working with, you're the chief editor in chief with iMedia. Why don't you give us your quick 2 cents on what iMedia is, how people can find that, and then let's hop into our conversation here.
Well, iMedia was an idea that was presented to me in July, well, probably March of this year. Ken Semler, a friend of both of ours, and a very, very well-known person in the modular industry, approached me and he said, hey, I like your blog, but he says, I need your help. And I said, what's that? And he said, I'd like to start offsitebuilder.com. And I said, well, okay, what is it? And he said, well, let's make it whatever we want to make it. So we've decided to make it an international forum for anything offsite. It doesn't matter. As long as it's offsite construction, we'll talk about it. So we decided that we would have a website called offsitebuilder.com, but we were also going to do a magazine. And it started off just being an online magazine. And now in February, none of this has started yet. We're still putting things together. The first magazine will online and printed will start February 1st. So you'll see it. You'll see the magazine at the IBS, or you can just sign up, go to ibuilder.com and sign up for a free subscription to the printed magazine.
There you have it. IBS is the place to go this year, right? Not only for offsite, the Building Systems Council, but now the first print run of offsite construction. You're going to want to keep it in the plastic bag because 20 years from now, if you have like print number 1, it's going to be worth $1 million. So especially if Gary signs it for you, because Gary's going to be there. And hey, Gary, guess what? And maybe this is something we should work on together is we have 5 free all access passes we're giving away to the International Builders Show this year coming up. So it'd be fun to get some of your folks involved, some of our folks involved, and really give some people the opportunity to go to the International Builders Show that may otherwise not have that opportunity or the funds to go. So
that'd be a lot of fun. I wouldn't, anything I can do to help you, Dave.
I love that. All right, Gary, let's hop into this, right? This has been a year with COVID, right? With the growth of offsite construction, modern methods of construction, whatever we want to call it, let's jump in. We're getting to the close of the end of the year. What are some of the surprises, good or bad, in 2021 that you feel have come to our industry?
The biggest one is the shortages of just about everything. That was totally unexpected. You would think the law of supply and demand would kick in, that there'd be plenty of material, but it's going to cost you more. Well, now it's not only costing you more, you can't find it. And it's not all, you hear this, well, the ships are stuck in the harbor in Los Angeles. Well, that's wonderful, but that doesn't have much to do with our industry, unless you're buying your faucets and light fixtures from China. Yeah. But it's just shortage of everything. I still don't understand why. And I've listened to about 4 experts and they all have their own opinion of it. So I'm hoping that changes in 2022.
Sure. Well, I agree with you on that. I think the supply chain outside of COVID is probably the biggest thing to hit our industry and cause some strife throughout everybody's day-to-day building practices and homeowners, and people that want to build. I mean, it couldn't have come at a worse time with the housing crisis and the shortage of homes across this country. It's just one of those things, but we're America and we get over stuff like that. Do you, when we saw this at MHBA this year, companies like CertainTeed and others, they do offshore manufacturing, but they bought their own planes to fly over and get their products as opposed to waiting on the ship. Have you heard any more stories like that?
They have to do it. I mean, I haven't heard any more stories, but they have to secure their supply chain. The other thing that was mentioned at MHBA that did not get a lot of response, but boy, I caught it, is when one of the vendors was asked directly, well, how do you distribute your limited supply materials? And the answer was not shocking, but I think it was shocking to the room, was that, well, our best customers get our supply, and don't call
Yeah.
us up if you're looking for something, because you're not going to get it from us.
Right.
And I thought, well, that's about the most realistic answer I've heard in a long time, but that's what's happening today.
Well, but it is, but it also stops the smaller guy, the smaller businesses
Oh,
from doing what they have to do. So there's a double-edged sword to that, for
well,
sure. But
and I'll give you one other example. One builder came to me and he said, I asked the factory to add these options in. They said, well, we're not doing options anymore because we can't do them. We can't get the materials, but you can supply your own materials when you get it. And so they sent him the home, and he went out to shop for the materials that they wouldn't put in. Not only couldn't he find them, what he found on the materials would cost him more money than what the factory would have charged him to do it in the first place. So the profit he was going to make, he didn't make that anticipate. At least he didn't lose any money. That's the good part. But he said, I don't know what I'm going to do if I get another custom home like this.
yeah, well, it's funny. We just I think it was last Friday or maybe the Friday before. When there's shortages, in our typical fashion, it's an opportunity for other pieces of the industry or other suppliers out there, such as hemp products. They're starting to make a bigger push into the market. And then there's some other, wallboard panels that are being used as exterior sheathing versus using your standard, OSB and
Mhm.
plywood and what have you. So I do believe that this supply chain issue is opening the doors for some better products to actually come down the pipeline. So
Oh,
it could be
I
a
do
double-edged
too.
sword for the
Yeah,
industry, huh?
I do too. I think that it's inevitable that there'll be new products. In fact, I just did a reader poll on one of my emails, and the majority said that they're looking for new products right now.
Yeah. What's the biggest surprise this year outside of the supply chain? Something good. Give us something good, Gary. What did you really enjoy this year?
New factories.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like one a week anymore. Uh, Today, I just did one on the solar factory up
Yeah.
in Geneva, New York. They're adding 100,000 square feet and more employees. And that's the biggest surprise. Uh, you and
Yeah.
I have talked before, Dave, about capacity. And up until just a few years ago, we saw no way to increase capacity except add second shifts. Well, that second shift is now a dream because nobody wants to work in that
Right.
second shift. So the idea that new factories are coming on to fill the capacity needed, that's great. I love that.
You're absolutely right, and there are new factories coming on. We need about 20,000 more across the country to to really make the impact that we need to make. But we have to start somewhere. And the solar factory, right? That's Ryan Wallace, and
Mhm.
I know they're expanding because building net zero modular communities is really starting to catch on, and they found a really strong niche with doing that.
Yeah, there'll be more like that.
Sure.
I think you're going to see even more affordable housing modular factories that are going to build large projects. A project may take 3 months to go through the factory, but when it comes out, they're going to end up building humongous
Yeah.
affordable housing projects.
Yeah. My biggest takeaway as far as something good that's happening is the amount of automation and technology, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But we're
Mhm.
starting to see some real factories come on that have some true automation that are really trying to take advantage of the next level technology that's out there, and the fact that we're finally starting to see more Revit and BIM used within our modular space is going to be a win for everybody, to include the local builder having to work with the consumer.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm I wish I were 20 years younger because I would dive right into AI. I mean, I think that is going to be an amazing part of our industry
Yeah.
once it's understood by the lowest common denominator.
Yeah, with AI, I mean, it's new just across the board in general, right, Gary? So hopefully, Gary, we can have a say in not being in last place to adopt it when they figure it out.
Yeah, and uh, I'm amazed at how the other countries of the world say, "Well, we're catching up to the United States. We're going to do it." And I look at what they're doing, and I'm going, "Wait a minute, you guys are ahead of us."
Yeah.
So there's some neat stuff coming out of Europe and the Scandinavian countries, and even the Far East. I mean, there are factories in Asia that are just unbelievable.
Yeah, there definitely are. In fact, Goldman Sachs just invested in one over there.
Yes.
So, we're starting to see the big money come into the offsite construction space, and if that's not a sure tell sign that it's going in the right direction, I do not know what is. So hopefully that continues.
Yeah, it will continue. It has to, because we can't supply enough of our own stuff.
Right.
Uh, and you say, well, we need 20. No, we need a lot of factories. And I calculated here a few years ago that we're probably going to need 2,000 factories just to meet today's capacity
Yeah.
of what could be modular construction. We're not sliding backwards and falling away, but to meet the growing demand for modular and offsite, we're going to need a lot of factories, and we can't do it all ourselves. So I think we're going to see the big companies from Japan and other places just filling that void. I just read where IKEA is supplying affordable apartments in Japan, and they're charging $1 a month. I don't understand their methodology. I just think, $1 a month, but there must be a reason they're doing it. And if they're doing it there,
Right.
they may have a handle on affordable housing for the whole world.
Yeah, well, I mean, $1 a month. That's almost hard to believe in of itself. I'm sure there's some subsidies or some money coming in somewhere to make that happen. But hey, listen, if you could figure that out and get people off the streets, it's all good. So, all right, Gary, let's get on to our next conversation
All
here.
right.
What do you see as the biggest obstacles to growth in offsite construction? Or if I say it a different way, what do we need to accelerate growth in offsite construction?
Uh, I think we need, oh man, there's a bunch of different things. None of them are huge, uh, but they're all just little things that pick away at acceptance.
Yeah.
One of them is regulations. We are faced with regulations that we have to meet as a modular industry that a lot of other industries that are building don't have to meet those strict standards. It's almost like we're expected to be better than anybody, and by golly, we're going to regulate it. So you are. That's one. The second one, or another one, is the fact that a lot of people still don't understand what offsite construction means. I You hear manufactured housing, you hear modular housing, you hear offsite construction, you hear offsite manufacturing, but there are so many different facets to it that you just can't cover the whole thing with a blanket. I mean, you talk about uh, offsite, that could be walls, that could be modules, that could be bath pods, that could be kitchen pods. I look for that to come soon. It could be a company that makes nothing but dormers. I mean, there's all sort, and of course, the original Windows. Anderson is an offsite manufacturer. So when you say, what do we need in the offsite industry? Well, a lot of it's covered, but boy, getting accepted by builders and developers that haven't used it yet, we need the education to get them to understand that we can do it. It might not be cheaper, but boy, we sure can be better.
Sure. Well, you know, you
And
hear you don't hear a whole lot about ANSI, who has developed language around this. Have you referenced anything that ANSI's been doing with their language around offsite, or is it just not catching on?
uh, I haven't really referenced it. Where I'm saying the regulations are needed to be more clarified is at the local level, state and local. I mean, you can have a code, and one state will recognize one version of it, another state will recognize another. Some states don't recognize much at all. Other ones grab the first one, the latest edition, whether they've read it or not, and adopt it immediately. California comes to mind right away. Uh, and then you have all the unsung heroes of this whole thing are those poor guys and gals that do planning and zoning at local levels, who they may only see 4 or 5 modular homes a year come in because they're so used to doing track builders, and all of a sudden a modular home shows up and they go, what do you mean I can't inspect behind the walls? What do you mean I can't look at this? And getting them to understand modular, that's still an education challenge to our industry. And then you move into the big developers, and they don't understand the real reason they should look at offsite and modular. They really don't, because it's getting better, but there's still not enough developers doing this.
Well, you know, from the developer standpoint, in doing this, you're right. A lot of times they just don't know how to calculate the value. They use a completely different process when
Right.
they're doing their numbers, and they don't. Typically, they have not been calculating the full life cycle value through warranty. Right. One of the things they're dealing with is subpar labor, unskilled labor, and all of that has consequences down the line, especially when you're doing 10,000, 20,000 homes a year. You're bound to have issues, but there is a quantification and a life cycle that needs to be looked at differently when you're going down that road, for sure, for
Well,
sure.
I'll give you a real quick example here.
Sure.
I was talking with a regional builder, and he said, we really tried to go modular, but he said, he said, every factory we talk to, he says, we can build them about 20% cheaper than that factory can do it.
Yeah.
And I said, well, that you're probably right, because you want a factory to build your units at zero profit. And it was like a bulb went off, and they said, oh, well, we make our profit at the end, not during the construction.
Yep.
I said, well, then I would just say, continue doing what you're doing. I said, either that or build your own factory. I don't know if they did build their own factory or thinking about it, but all of a sudden it never dawned on them that a factory has to make money. And they weren't looking at it that way. They were just thinking, well, we can like buying raw material and then we'll do it. So that's some of the misconceptions that, and this was a big developer.
Yeah.
He just had a misconception.
And we're seeing developers, you know, start getting into their own factories and to build their own product. Some of it caused by they found out the love for modular. You know, others just supply chain issues. They want to control more of their supply chain, and they're building the factories for that reason versus outsourcing it to a factory. So
Yes,
there's a couple of things there. Let's take a second, Gary, and just say hi to a few folks. We got a bunch of people in the audience. I had a feeling we wouldn't be able to get through everything that today. So if we don't get to your question or we don't get to your comment, please take no offense. We still got a lot of show left to watch here, but we do appreciate it. And we will get to your questions or comments after the show for sure. But why don't we say hi to a few? Hey, look at that. Tennessee Modular. Man, I hope he's doing good. What a fun person. I didn't see you at MHBA this year. Where you been? It's a tough year for a lot of people, though. We got Andrew Wilkinson from across the pond. Good evening, Dave, Jen, and Gary from across the pond. It's good to see you, Andrew. We got Buzz Holowitzer in the house. Welcome to from the cold state of Go Blue. That's right. I think it's snowing up there, right? Oh, look at that. We got more. Will Everett. I expect a great conversation with Gary Fleisher, the Modcoach. Well, I don't think he's disappointing yet, so let's just keep it running. Hey, look at that. We got Diana Sunshine Wolf. Hey, Diana, good to see you. I hope all is well where you're at from YouTube. We got Tom Reddy. Hello from Du Bois, PA. They're all over the place. Here's one, Gary. I don't know. Do you know Carson Holmquist from Stream Logistics in Scottsdale?
Nope, I do.
We had him on the show not too long ago, but this is somebody you should talk to and write something up on. They're doing a really cool with their logistics people for transportation, and they're using technology to take it to the next level and work along with manufacturers to take that off their plate and manage it in a way that has not ever been managed before. Super cool technology that they're using. So check them out. All right, John Harding. Hey, John Harding, good to see you. Good to see you. We got also from Massachusetts, St. Gobain. So we got Greg Ugaldi. What's happening, Mr. Greg Ugaldi? Awesome. Greg Zick, Vice President Workforce Development, will join us next Monday. Greg's on our show next Monday. That's awesome. For more student chapter updates, great job today, Gary, Dave, Jen. And Jen is an unsung hero. She is in the background. Gary. I just run my mouth. I don't put any of the hard work in behind the scenes. Jen does all the hard stuff. Let me do a couple more and we'll get back to the show and we'll keep going through. Corral Bish from YouTube, morning from Patararoo, South Waikato, New Zealand. I don't think I said that right at all. Green frame, light gauge, steel, and modular buildings. My favorite modular guys live. Hey, Carol, thank you so much for joining us from YouTube today. We really do appreciate you. I'm going to do one more just and then we'll move on because Jerry McCahey in the house. Great idea, Gary. Looking forward to it. All right, so good to see Jerry and Gilbert from Honduras. And Mark Willie will be up next when I come back in. All right, Gary, let's continue our show. We want to give people what they came here for, and that is to hear us kind of go back and forth on what we see happening out there. You know, what's fun about this, Gary, is just like yourself and myself, we spend so much time talking to people from around the world in this industry, whether it be modular, panelization, concrete, mass timber, CLT, it doesn't really matter. And it really, it's fun because it kind of gives you an inside look or a different look than people that are just looking, or not having the same conversations we have on a regular basis. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. All right, let's do this here. All right, Gary, we are moving on. Where do the opportunities, let's get into, where do the opportunities lie in construction right now, whether it's modular, CLT? I mean, we could talk everything from set crews to supply chain. What do you think is the biggest opportunity? We know trades are one of them.
Oh, trades are definitely one. And that's the one everybody puts on the pedestal and says, if we can just solve the trades, the MEPs and skilled labor, we'd have it made. Well, you wouldn't. Truck drivers, the set crews. We talk about set crews. Okay, let's say we double our business. We don't have enough set crews now. And if there's no training for set crews and nobody's entering that business, that's a tough job. I wouldn't want to be sorry about this, set crew owners, but I wouldn't want to be working a set crew because one day you're working in nice heat and the next day it's freezing cold and the next day it's so dry and hot you can't stand it. And that's all just in Maryland. I mean, can you imagine these other states? So that is an opportunity that somebody has to. Now I know Vesta's looking into that, but and they're approaching it, but it's going to take more than one or two companies. It's going to take some really good thought to get more set crews out there. And in fact, the factories are probably going to end up getting more of their own.
Yeah.
That's one area. Trucking, that's always going to be a bit because you just can't take a truck driver. It's a long haul truck driver. Have him attach his tractor to a 16 or 18 or even a 20-foot wide module and tell him, well, deliver this to Idaho. And that doesn't happen. So we're not training those kind of truck drivers. And salespeople, I mean, the successful salespeople right now are mostly getting up there. Can we say that politely?
Yeah, they're in their
And
40s.
yeah, they're in their 40s. So, and right now, you can be a good salesman, but the demand is so high, it's almost like 2006 again.
Yeah.
So, what happens when times start getting tougher? If they do, I hope not. But we're a cyclical business. So, we're going to need to bring in some good salespeople and management people. And so it's people based.
It sure
What
is.
are we missing other than that? Opportunities. We, I think one of the big opportunities coming out or coming up is hemp. I mean, holy smokes!
There you go.
I took
Alternative building materials for sure. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't smoke it actually, so uh, I'll have to build with it. But
Uh,
the people that are in the hemp industry right now, I think they're setting on little gold mines,
yeah.
and especially I've done it on hempcrete and hemp insulation, OSB. I'm not sure how the timber's going to work. Be like putting that stuff that you put in your pellet stove and mashing it together and forming a two before. I'm still not 100% sold on that one yet.
Well,
But they
the hemp
might.
strands are strong. The hemp strand is very strong. It's just how do you bond it together to get what
Yes.
you need. And we have Mandy Kerr on the show, who
Hmm.
is the head of the Global Hemp Association, about once a month, and showcasing. We've had hempcrete and showcase that on the show here. But I agree with you. I think, and we said it earlier in the show, I think hemp has a big place in the industry moving forward. The biggest issue with hemp is the same issue we have in the modular space, and there's not enough manufacturing and processing of the raw material to get a strong foothold right now. So there's an opportunity for it, but you almost need paper factories, right? You got to get that pulp going to make these
Yep.
materials, and that's one of the things that they're really struggling with in that industry.
Well, there are other alternative building materials. Are looking at mushrooms. Who would ever thought you could make bricks out of mushrooms?
Right.
I mean, if you would have told me that 5 years ago, I'd have said, "Yeah, right. You're not only smoking hemp, you're taking mushrooms, man." Because
Insulation too. They're making insulation out of
I
mushrooms.
know mushrooms.
That's
I
right.
mean, heck, I could go in the backyard in my dead tree and probably
Right.
supply a house back there.
Sure. Yeah. Well,
But
I agree with you, with the set crew stuff. I don't want to be crawling around in the mud, not at 50, 51, for me, but I think to me, trucking, now hear me on this. I think trucking and the way we ship modules and the way we take modules off and the way we set modules is a huge opportunity for somebody if they take the
yep,
time and put the innovation into it. Why, for one, it's dangerous. I mean, you're crawling under these, 10, 15, 30,000 pound modules on a hill sometimes, undoing screws. I mean, those things can slip, fall at any given time. It doesn't happen often, so it's not like a huge thing, but there's definitely technology out there that we could use to improve the setting of modules and how we set them versus how we do it today. And that might be how you end up getting people back in to do the set crews because they're hurting for people. They can't find anybody.
oh, years over the past few years, I've had
Yeah.
set crews write to me and say, "Hey, can you put out there that we have a couple open dates next week?" And
Yeah.
that doesn't happen anymore. I
Yeah.
mean, they're actually turning people away. And oh my heavens, if you have a set scheduled and for some reason the factory can't get you the modules, they they're not upset. The set crew isn't upset with you. They'll just go do another one and then they'll try to put you back on your schedule.
That's
And
right.
it might be a month.
Yeah.
I know there are builders out there that have waited a month with the modules sitting next to the foundation, just waiting for their set crew.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. And I also, maybe you're seeing some of this as well, but I feel that there's a big opportunity for a hybrid approach of construction in the modular world, using mass timber, using CLT, using modular techniques and other panelized forms, not just wood forms of panelization. What are you seeing out there?
I think CLT's well, it already is. But this is one area that I think Europe has really taken the lead. Some of the buildings they have are absolutely beautiful, and it's now coming here. But again, how do you tell a builder, well, when you design this, let's use CLTs? And
Yep.
he's not even educated in how to make it work. So you have to bring people into his business to set CLTs, and that's an added expense.
That's right.
So really, our industry is really, I mean, I hate to say it, we do educate. I mean, we really try. But Dave, do you know anybody that's got it organized that if you want to get set crew people, is there any place in the United States that you can send a person, or even a online that you can send a candidate?
Not yet, but we're working on it.
I know, but it's not here.
Working on it. No, I mean, really, there's some real thought starting to go into that, and you're spot on, Gary. You know, these schools need to be had. Where do people learn offsite? Where do they learn techniques? But even on the modular manufacturing side of this, you know, the CLTs. Jerry, I saw, you know, we mentioned Jerry McCaughey was on it. He'll be the first to tell you, you know, using poor lumber in your builds causes you issues on a job site using true lumber that costs you a little bit more. There's time and savings lost somewhere along the way. You know, that's why when you see a steel building go up, a steel module like a ModLogic, you know, and they're setting 20 modules a day because they can pick from the top and it's perfectly square and it all, you know, there's some real value to looking at using better materials for the skeletons of what we're building. And I think, you know, there needs to be some studies done on that, on how that increases time, because I can tell you now, Europe does not use the grade lumber we use in our homes. They're using a different grade lumber, and it's much nicer. And I'll do a selfish plug. We will be in Switzerland on the 15th. We're flying over there to do a tour of factories, which is going to be a lot of fun with Mike Holmes on Homes, Matt Reisinger, and some others. So it's going to be cool. It's going to be kind of cool. So I'll be able to see it firsthand, and hopefully we'll go live and show. But I mean, you know that too, Gary, right? The lumber's different.
Well, it's not only different. How long ago was it? 30 some years ago, I managed two of the biggest lumber yards in Pennsylvania. And it was not unusual for one of the yard workers to come in. His hand was cut, and it wasn't because he wasn't careful. When they cut the metal bands on the lumber, they are so twisted, so disgusting, that the band would fly up and just cut them, face, hands. It's a dangerous job, and that hasn't really improved. I mean, they take the lumber that's wet, put it into a band, then it dries differently, and we used to call that kind of lumber 3D, stood for dirty, damaged, and discontinued. But you would see them; they look like the staves on an oak barrel when they came off of those brand new pallets of lumber.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's get back to some comments here and questions, Gary, just because we like to give people our due, and you being on the show, we should let them know. Mark Build Small Casista Willie is joining us. That would be Mark Bare Naked Willie from BS Friday. Gary Fleisher, the Modcoach. Great way to start.
Can I do this?
You can do thumbs. Give him the thumbs up. We love the thumbs up, right? Mark knows all about the thumbs up. Gary's on the inside now, Mark. He knows all the hand signals. So Anthony Pack, he says, and here's a plug for our show, Anthony Pack of Priopta and Carbon Leadership Forum is live this Friday on BS Friday. So looking forward to that. Let's see what else. Gilbert Meyer says, eliminate options, choose better items, and order larger quantities. Eliminate options, choose better items, and order larger quantities is Gilbert's thought process on the supply chain stuff there. What do you think about that?
He and I take different routes to the same place.
Yeah.
One of the things that's going to be missing within the next 10, 15 years are going to be custom modular homes, because Gilbert's right. If you want to make money, you want to make it quick, you want to make it consistently, build the same thing over and over and over and over. But there are a lot of small builders that build custom homes.
Yep.
And the old guard of the custom home builders, the guys that grew up in it and had the pickup truck and learned it on the job training. The new people coming in don't want to do that. They're looking at, okay, can we do it modular and we can order all this special stuff at the factory and we'll still build the house and it'll be custom, but the factory will do they'll do the heavy lifting. Well, there's going to be less and fewer modular factories willing to take on that custom. And I say that probably in 10, 15 years, the only factories that will be doing custom will be charging more because it's custom, and they will be making more money. So here's my plug. If you are a small factory and you want to make more money than you've ever thought, kick that affordable housing stuff out, kick those projects out, and go for custom, because it won't make you as much money, but it make you nice money, and you don't have to worry about trying to shove 20 to 30 floors out the door every week.
Right. There you go.
There. If I could be one thing, it would be own a modular factory that did custom.
That's right. Well, yeah, definitely. But I mean, and depending on where you are, does that custom work, right? We've seen it. You and I both know that, custom in the New England, New York states, and the West Coast is much different than custom in the Midwest. And the numbers don't always work across the country for certain things.
No, they really don't. In fact, the custom market west of the Mississippi really has no comparison to what goes on. And Mid-Atlantic, New York, and up through New England, that's where custom homes are.
Yeah.
The custom modular homes. And I would hate to see that industry die.
Oh, yeah. I was part of that industry up there for a lot of years. I know it very well. I know it very well. All right, let's get Mark. Mark has a question for you, Gary, and this is one of your favorite questions. I already know it. Let's see if the answer has changed since the last time we spoke about it. What are your thoughts on altering the streetscape so that scale and replication can be like Ford? Any house you want, as long as it's black. This does not mean that design and looks are not part of it. Moreover, a way of simplifying so that the durability and efficiency is possible and encouraged. The automobile question. I know you love it, Gary. I got some thoughts on this too, but I'm going to let you talk first because I know you got deep roots on this one.
Well, I think I can answer it just like Stefan Limbach answered it when I took him on a tour of a modular factory here in the U.S. As we were going through the factory, we went about 3/4 of the way through it, and he stopped and he said, Gary, he says, why is every module different? I said, because we build custom. He said, well, not only that, he said, that one's built different than this one's built. I said, and I was lucky because I had the head of engineering with me. Yeah. And the guy, Aaron Trometer, best guy in the world, said, that one's going to Vermont, so we have to worry about snow load. That one's going to New Jersey. We have to worry about water and flooding. And he said, that one's going to New York, where we have to worry about seismic. And Stefan looked at me and he said, no. He says, this isn't right. He says, they all need to look alike. He says, whole projects. And it was tough for him to take a look at that and realize that no two modules going down that factory on that, or pretty much any day, were the same. He had a real tough time with that.
Yeah, and a lot of the European factories have a hard time understanding that, but we're also, our geography is a lot bigger than those countries that, what they're dealing with. And, the automotive industry, and I see Gene Meredith, thank you for joining us, Gene. You said, described your business model. That's exactly what we need. I'd like to learn more about that business model. So with the automobile industry, and it's funny, Gary, I've been having the conversations with some global leaders that have done like Porsche and all the big auto factories, right? That are looking at taking a hard look at our industry right now. And the interesting thing is I think you can build like the automobile industry, but the caveat is this: it's not custom. To the extent it's kind of like what Mark's saying. You have to know what you're going to be putting out the door before you build the factory. An automobile factory does not build a factory and then decide what kind of cars are going to run through it. You need to know the 5 different chassis that you're going to have, and what are the 30 looks you can get off that 5 different chassis. That's where you're going to get the scale and replication. Now, when AI and parametric and parametric design and generative design and all these other things really catch up with us with our BIM and everything, that may change how we can run robots in factories and what happens. But as of right now, you got to streamline your product SKU to really get the speed and efficiency out of mass production versus, like you were saying, Gary, where the money could be is in the custom.
Yeah, and it has to. We have to look like the auto factory. Right now, though, we're pushing that envelope pretty hard in that we can do the automation up to a certain point.
Yeah.
But at that point, even with repetitive modules going out, the human comes in, the human element. From the time that those panels are all done and ready to go, putting those together into a 6-sided box and what goes inside in the way of cabinetry and that, I hope someday that we can eliminate a lot of the tedious work that people are doing now. But right now, it just seems to stop at that point, and we're back to way we did it 100 years ago from a certain point. Now, some factories can take it further. There are some factories that have an automated one thing. I toured a factory one day, and I had talked about, hey, are you doing automation? Are you thinking about it? He says, oh, we've already installed it. And I said, what's that? He says, come over here and look. And he put a CNC cutter on his line. And he says, I'm getting automated. And I'm going, okay, I think you missed a point here.
Well, that is automation to some people, right? I guess it all depends. I guess it all depends. All right, let's get through a couple more of these. Here's a great question. Then we're going to fly through a couple comments real quick. Says Chris McKenzie from LinkedIn in the UK, Wales. I'm a big fan of the Flying Factory concept, where we bring MMC, modern methods of construction, closer to the sites and employ local labor. Thoughts on this? Oh boy, can I go down the rabbit hole on this one?
Yeah, so could I, because I absolutely love it. There are so many warehouses sitting empty out there, and right next to it is a development with 400 tract homes, and next to that is the town itself that needs 1,000 affordable housing units. Why not have the Flying Factory or a pop-up factory? But you have to go into it. If someone does it, they can't just do it for that one factory. They have to plan as if they're going to open up in 50 different cities across the country, because every city is different. But they can do a pop-up factory, and then when the majority of it's done, close it down. Take those cranes out, because you really don't need a whole lot of heavy-duty equipment to move modules around. So you have a big space, you go in, you fill the orders, and then you're done. Your trucking is cut to less than an hour. Your workforce is local, and you can even find factory or warehouses in areas of a town that has high unemployment. Mine, for example, my county has, we just opened up our 5th Amazon warehouse in my little town of 29,000 people. We have 5 Amazon warehouses.
Yeah.
I mean, 5 million square feet. of Amazon warehouses. And those Amazon warehouses are taking the people that were working at other factories and they're paying them more, bringing them in. But there's still areas of this town that have a bunch of people that have no transportation to go there. So their unemployment rate is extremely high in certain areas. What can you imagine a factory that would say, okay, every morning we're going to drive 5 buses over, pick you up, and take you to our factory. You're going to work, and we'll take you home. That's some of the real beauty of a pop-up or a flying factory.
You know,
And then I don't know how you feel about it, but I can't wait to start seeing somebody organizing that.
No, so I agree. I agree with what you said. I also see, especially a developer. I mean, that's more somebody that's doing a big development, whether it's residential or commercial project, that's going to do something like that. That's not something you're going to do for just a couple of houses. But if you could design and use the local community, Dr. Brent Musson has a concept like this, right, from Musson Factories, where you turn that pop-up facility on location as an assembly line versus a construction site. Imagine if you could get your kit of parts built and you use the local communities and you know what your plumbing has to be and your harnesses and your MEPs, and you could have walls and all this sourced locally, right? But then your skilled labor doesn't have to be as skilled as long as they're doing it in an assembly line approach within these pop-up factories. So there's two ways of looking at how that's done, with the community, because the biggest problem with these pop-up factories as well is the labor. And yeah, they may work for, a year, but then they know they're out of a job and that pop-up factory leaves, right? Or whatever the case is. So there's some thoughts on that, but I think it can go both ways. You have to be like McDonald's. I hate to say it that way. You got to have a system and numbers by the charts, because it takes a long time to train people in a manufacturing environment. Framing walls, jigs, laying out floors. Every modular manufacturer is a wall panelizer. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
they are.
Yeah, very, very much so. And there's some modular factories out there that build their own trusses.
That's right.
But I think one of the things that is going to come, and it's going to come quickly, I think, is when we figure out how to take bathroom pods and kitchen pods and build them into the line as it's going down the factory. So we're going to, we can buy bathroom pods right now. For apartment houses, they're doing it right now when they're building them. They just buy 150 bathrooms. We should be able to do the same thing, especially on a repetitive module.
Right.
And having them come in, the key is how to have them come in that they're at floor level. And once we figure that out and how they're attached and get that past the code people, look for kitchens to be right behind it. The kitchen could be an 8-foot wide. You have a 12, 15-foot wide box. That kitchen could be 12 foot one way and 8 foot. As long as it keeps under 8 foot in one direction, they can ship those in pods just like anything else. And it just slides right in.
Like bath pods and everything else. You're right.
Yes.
All right.
I think you're going to see that.
All right, we're getting down to just a few minutes here, Gary. I want to say hi to a couple people we haven't said hi to you. We got Henry Mickelberg, never short on words. Change the paint, change the wheels. You've got a custom car by changing 2 of the 3,500 components. There's about 3,000 different things stuff in a typical 4-star volume metric module. Change 1% of them, and you are customizing. Well said. Well said. All right, all the way from Zimbabwe. Good to see you today on YouTube. I really wish I could say your name properly. I don't know how to say it, but I appreciate you tuning in. I got to work on that. I'll let you take a stab at some of them, Gary. I try.
No, that sounds terrible. That's why I call everybody neighbor.
So I want to go in here, Gary. Let's speed round the last couple questions just so everybody can get the information that we've come here to do, right? So I'm going to combine 2 of my questions, right? So we've kind of hit on this already, but if you were to name who's making a play in the U.S., any international players hitting the scene that you know of that is looking to make a big stamp here?
No, but somebody's going to surprise me.
Yeah.
I think there's so many players looking at the U.S., but Dave, you hit it right in the head. somebody from Sweden, somebody from
Yep.
Germany, somebody from Poland, they think, well, we'll go do this in the US. And then you come here and find out that depending where you put it, your factory, it's completely different than this region.
That's right.
And I think there's going to be some wake up calls for some of these factories that choose to do the wrong thing in the wrong region. In other words, if you opened up a modular factory in New Hampshire and you decide you're going to build this 5 houses, that's all you're going to build. And it's like Henry says, you change two things. That doesn't really make it a custom home in New England. And that's your premise. You're going to do this. And you open your doors and nobody buys your product. That same product could have went like gangbusters in the Midwest.
Right.
So you take somebody from Poland and drop their entire country into a few states in the US, and all of a sudden we're throwing them curves left and right. So I know some people that I think will come, but will they? I mean, they're here already. The Japanese companies and all this are already.
Yeah, Sekisui, all those guys, they're already doing business over here for sure.
They're here, but you're talking about the new people coming in, and I just don't know. I think it's going to surprise. I think you're going to see some people coming in that you go, I knew they were coming, but I just didn't think they were going to come now.
Well, I know in the panelized space they are coming, especially Ireland. Look at Jerry McCaughey, what he did with his company, right? So the opportunities here, if you grasp it, and I think Jerry broke down a lot of barriers on what people thought could happen. But I definitely see a big play in the panelization stuff happening over here, and the mass CLT companies trying to, open up shop here, which makes sense. You get more into the component style offsite products. I think it's an easier win right off the bat. Adopting full scale modular at the same way the European countries are doing it, that's gonna take a little bit more time, but they're definitely here doing it already. It's just a matter of, are we gonna see it in any amount of scale that's gonna make a difference is kind of where we're at on that.
Well, one of the things that I keep reading about, oh, woe is me that Katerra went out. Oh, it's terrible. They took all this money. And I look at it and I said, it's the best thing that happened to us because we now have somebody owning that factory that knows what he's doing.
And we were talking about Vaughn at the Katerra plant. Tracy, California.
And that was it was terrible for the people that invested in Katerra. And I feel sorry for them if they lost money. But it's the best thing that happened to the modular housing industry because Vaughn now is on the West Coast. And if anybody can join both ends of this country together and make things happen, it's Vaughn. So the best thing that ever happened with the Katerra debacle was Vaughn taking it on. And I look for big things from volumetric building companies.
Yeah, they got a lot going on. Vaughn's a super smart guy. He's gone from zero to hero, like I say. It seems like overnight since we were just stick building. He was doing one-offs, and look at him now. He's what I call, Gary, an overachiever. He's like a Ken Semler. I don't know when they sleep or how they get anything done, but Vaughn will make a difference. And since you mentioned the Katerra plant, I see a lot of good that's come out of Katerra, more good than bad. They pushed the envelopes. There were outsiders trying to make a difference. There's a lot of IP and technology, such as Vaughn picked up at that factory out there. There's a whole lot of wins that are happening with what Katerra, the nibbles and kiblets that Katerra has left behind for others to pick up. So I agree. I think it's going to be a win-win for our industry. That's it, folks. We're wrapping up here. We're at our hour. I just want a couple quick shout outs. If I missed you, Chris Blankard, sorry. He says there's already pop-up factories going on. And yeah, we know with the IntelliSteel group, there is some that are happening in that realm. Also, top-down construction. There's pop-up factories happening on large commercial sites. I've seen it. Henry, we've already talked. And here's, let me just, real quick, just because I want it, can the modules be adapted in an area where the terrain is not flat? Okay, so not necessarily with wood construction or steel construction, but you could prep the property to accept, that modular terrain. I haven't seen anybody building, unless we get into 3D printing, that might be a game changer, but then they're going to have a hard time running the printers on a slope till too. So
Sure.
what's your thoughts there, Gary?
Well, foundations are always level.
Yeah.
So you just build up the back end and make the front end a little shorter. I mean,
Yep.
it's just, but
They can use a
it's the
multi-point
foundation.
foundation system.
Yeah.
You know, I would look into the multi-point foundation systems, and I'm not going to name names here, but it's basically rods you can put in different angles, and they're super strong, and they're used on commercial buildings as well. All right, everybody, listen, Jim Griffith as well. Good to see you, Jim. I appreciate you. Gary, it's been a real pleasure having you on our show today. Thank you so much for joining us. Is there one thing you want to leave us with before you go?
Just this. Gotta love modular.
Gotta love modular. You gotta love modular. Listen, there's a big future in the modular space, and with people like you helping driving the message, Gary, it's going to go fast and it's going to go far, or maybe it's going to go far and fast, however you want
Dave,
to say.
thank you for having me on. I mean, I hope I wasn't too boring.
Hey, listen, if you're out there, you'd like to see more Gary and I go back and forth. You know, maybe we banter once a quarter and give you our updates from all the people that we're interviewing. Share notes and have a collaborative conversation. Maybe we can do a 2-hour, town hall type event online. Gary, would you be interested in that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Just
we
you pick
can
the
do
time
some
of day and make sure Jen's there because I want things to go right.
Well, that's right. That's right. That's the only reason they go right. Didn't you know that, Gary? And I know Peg's listen. I hear it. I know how it works, Peg. I know you.
Yeah, well, I read the husband's handbook.
That's right. That's right. Listen, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful day. We will see you this Wednesday and Friday. We are on the road on the Build It Better Road Show. We are going to be in Alabama for a couple weeks. We're going to meet up with some great people here, heading across Georgia, then back up through the Carolinas. Who knows where you're going to see us stop next? But if you're on our route or anywhere in that area and you'd like the Build It Better Road Show to stop by you, let us know. We'd love to come see you and do our show. Gary, don't go anywhere. I'll come back to you after the outro. Everybody else out there, have a wonderful day. Bye now.